We're here at Unpub 3 with Jay Treat, game designer extraordinaire. He's brought 3 games to show us stuff from. We're going to start with Assault on Khyber Station, which is actually the only one of the 3 that I've actually played and enjoyed it both times. So, here we go. Jay?
Hi folks, I'm really glad to be here. Unpub 3 has been amazing. I've met all kinds of great designers and publishers and players, and it's really a great experience, and I'm grateful for it. So let me tell you about the first game that I brought to an Unpub Mini. This is Assault on Khyber Station. It's a sci-fi co-op for 2 to 4 players. There are options for one or 5. Basically, you're on the space station, which you build with these tiles randomly. It's been attacked by aliens, so it's messed up, and you guys are trying to escape the space station before it completely falls apart, and at the same time there are aliens who are invading from these invasion points, and they keep spreading each turn. So each player has a different ability, and you have to work together as a team to try to get off the space station in the very short amount of time that you have while things are going wrong on the space station and while the aliens are trying to kill you. That's basically it. I've been working on this for a while, and I think it'll sell soon.
I know you've got a lot of fans on this game. It was a topic of discussion the other night on Twitter. So when I was doing the schedule, I actually made sure that I added a couple. Made sure you've got several plays of this one, even though I know that the game that you came here to show specifically this weekend was Intrigue, correct?
Yeah. So,
Intrigue's the next one you're going to talk about.
So Intrigue is a trick-taking card game for 2 to 4 spy masters. Basically, it's set in Renaissance Venice, and it's a trick-taking card game. But each player is specifically a spy master who is trying to manipulate the various agents in the city and to their own goals. What makes Intrigue play a little bit different from every other trick-taking card game is that each player cares about 3 of the 6 factions in the city, and they share one faction with each other player. So any given round, you need to work with another player, one of your opponents, in order to score points. So for example, these 2 players might try to get the nobles to score this round, but if it turns out that this guy's not playing along, then you might, if you're this Kestrel, you might need to change and try to work with the Shadow Man with this character. And then the other thing that makes it stand out from other trick-taking card games is that each round you play 2 cards, and at the end you're going to pick one back up into your hand for play in a future turn, which means that you can craft your hand over the course of the game. So it really rewards tactical play, a little bit of politics and reading your opponents and manipulating them, and as well as long-term planning in, do you want to play out your best cards early? Do you want to try and waste your opponent's good cards? And I find that it has a lot of depth, and players have been enjoying it. I'm really excited about Intrigue because I think that it will appeal to a larger audience than Assault on Khyber Station. A different audience, but
I would say a different audience.
Yeah.
It can't downplay the appeal of cooperative games for some reason, but the historical scenarios of the Renaissance are absolutely appealing as well. It's a different kind of theme that has it's different, a large fan base as well. So
and schemes. So I'm not one to just tack a theme onto a game. I really think that theme needs to play an important role. So even though the game it feels a little bit intrigue-ish, like your spy master just kind of manipulating enemy agents, I wanted to really drive that theme home. So I added schemes. So schemes are cards that players you're going to secretly choose a scheme each turn, and if you can get that to happen, then you're going to get a reward for it. And some of them will give you points, and some of them kind of mess with the current play. So maybe a given that players thought was going to be the case in a given hand, you'll say, haha, no, because you played this guy with the guile trait, suddenly I can trick him or replace him or something like that. And so they add a lot of depth, and they also make the game, which is normally very tight, have a lot more give in terms of being able to come back from a bad start or something like that. So
interesting.
And they feel spyish.
They feel spyish. I feel spyish. I think I need to stay home from school today.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It's a bad joke right
Excellent.
off there. Now, the last game you have is actually called The Last Planet. So we'll pan over and...
Yeah. So this is a brand new design of mine. I've only played it twice, but it's a new idea. It spawned from the ashes of a StarCraft deck building game, which was just a terrible idea. This is a tile laying game in which the idea is that each of these units. So this is your hatchery, your base, and you can start building out your drones to harvest minerals. And the deal is that the pieces, the physical shape of the pieces determines what that piece can actually do. So the length of it determines how far it moves. The joints determine not only which units can actually connect to which other units, but their range of motion. And there are other little quirks, like for example, the Zergling race, the Zergs, have a queen unit which can spawn units, and that explains the funny shape on the Zerg units. So yes, they look badass, and they should, but this actually has a functional purpose, and that is that instead of spawning them from the base outward like you do normally, once you've got the queen, you can spawn from here. I have Protoss and Terrans. They're all set up and have their own unique things. And one thing that I did quickly discover was that without any variance, normally these were just like, oh yeah, a probe does 1 damage and Zerglings do 2 or whatever. There was no variance, and so the game was actually deterministic. Once you figured out how to play, it was kind of like chess. Once you figured out what the strategies were, it was just a matter of figuring out what your opponent was trying to do and doing the other thing that trumps it. So I added dice. So now you've got, it's a fairly easy system. Basically, the ground units roll these green dice, and they're more likely to hit ground units, but they have a small chance of hitting armored units as well. The armored units are very good at tearing apart other armored units and can also hit ground units. Neither of them can hit air units, but obviously if you've got air units or anti-air pieces, they've got this blue die which is very good at hitting air units. And then like the Marines and other things with basic range can hit everything, just not as reliably. So in addition to trying to go for resources, you're also positioning your guys tactically and taking chances with the dice. You could call it a war game. I wouldn't. It's a very tactile and loose interpretation of StarCraft, and it still has a long way to go. Lots of development, but it has proved unique and interesting. And at the very least, even if it goes nowhere, it got some oohs and ahs just in the way it looks, and that's always nice, especially considering the ridiculous amount of work it took to build this particular prototype.
I was going to say that those tiles had to be a lot of work. They do look cool, but that's a lot of production for a prototype. That's commitment. So that's great.
Yeah.
But then again, that's what I come to expect from you. You put good games on the table that have taken a lot of thought, a lot of time, and you put a lot of effort into making them look good and make them playable. So we always appreciate that when we get to sit down and play a game. So thank you for that, Jay, and thank you for coming here and talking to us this afternoon. We really appreciate that. We're looking forward to the next time we get to sit down and play a Jay Treat game.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.